I know exactly how the silence feels right now. It is not an empty silence. It is a heavy one. A silence packed tight with the weight of unfulfilled promise, with the exhaustion of walking routes that only lead back to where you started. Maybe you are sitting by a window, watching the sun hit the dust motes in the air, and you realize that your internal landscape feels exactly like that dust, floating, undirected, unable to settle into solid ground. I know that ache, that dull, constant throb of the soul that looks around at the current state of things, the stagnant job, the strained relationship, the persistent financial worry, and whispers the terrifying question, is this all there is? It's that moment, often around 3 a.m., when all the carefully constructed walls of optimism crumble and you are left exposed to the raw, dry truth. You feel like you are standing in a vast, unending desert. You have prayed for rain, but the sky is brass. You have searched for a path, but the sand shifts and swallows every footprint. You feel forgotten, stranded in the barren geography of your own life. This feeling of being trapped in the wilderness is not a sign of failure. It is not evidence of a lack of faith. It is simply evidence of the human condition, facing the seemingly impossible. You have done everything you knew to do, and still the landscape remains dry. You deserve to feel the pain of that struggle. Give yourself permission to feel the friction, the fatigue, the deep spiritual thirst. But listen closely. And it's exactly for this heart, for this specific arid place you inhabit, that the ancient prophet spoke words that shatter the geography of scarcity. We are talking today about activating the unbelievable promise found in the book of Isaiah, chapter 43, verse 19. The promise is this: "Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert."
This is not a historical observation. This is a divine declaration that overrides natural law. God does not just maintain a path, He makes a path where the path logically cannot exist. He does not divert a river, He creates a river in the place defined by absolute dryness. Most people treat this verse like a beautiful poem to be framed and hung on the wall. We wait for the new thing to appear fully formed, like a shimmering city on the horizon. But the miracle is not just the arrival of the path. The miracle is in the process of its appearing. The challenge and the sacred invitation is in the final crucial phrase, "Do you not perceive it?" This is where we must become intentional cartographers of our own souls. Think of your life right now as that endless, shifting wilderness. The promise, the path, the river is already being created. It is springing forth. But if we are looking only for the massive, obvious signs of change, we will miss the subtle, quiet miracle happening right beneath our feet. We mistake the lack of a grand highway for the lack of potential. The desert is not empty. It is a place of raw potential, waiting for the divine gardener to introduce the flow of life. Our task is to learn how to see the path while it is still only a whisper of possibility. Why don't we perceive it? Why do we miss the new thing that is already springing forth? The path in the wilderness is often obscured by what I call the curse of external perception. This is the first and perhaps most common mistake we make. We have to find what the new thing must look like based on other people's stories, or based on the media's definition of success, or based on the grand, dramatic gestures we see in Scripture. We are waiting for a Red Sea to part, when God is offering us a single quiet stream of pure water, enough for today.
The curse of external perception makes us look for the path out there when the path always begins in here. We seek grand confirmation, when often the first sign of the river is simply a slight lift of the spirit, an unexpected moment of clarity, or the sudden, gentle desire to take care of yourself. We miss the path because it looks too small, too ordinary, too much like the life we already live. I remember when I was struggling through a period of intense creative stagnation. I prayed for a breakthrough, a dramatic sign, a publisher calling, a major opportunity landing in my lap. I was waiting for the desert to instantly turn into a sprawling garden. Day after day, I saw only dry sand. I felt frustrated and spiritually ignored. One morning, exhausted, I finally stopped looking up and started looking down. I wasn't given a book deal, but I was given the desire to simply write one true sentence. not a page, not a chapter, just one true sentence before the coffee got cold. I repeated this the next day and the day after. The external path, the future success, was not yet visible, but the internal path was being formed by the consistency of those single, true sentences. The river was not a flood. It was the slow, steady drip of discipline returning to my soul. I missed the miracle for weeks because I was looking for a thunderous answer instead of an internal whisper. Are you looking for a miracle with headlights, or are you willing to recognize the path that is illuminated only by a single candle flame, enough light for the next step? The solution to the curse of external perception is the practice of sacred observation. Slow down your spiritual pace. Focus less on the destination and more on the texture of the journey right now. Where is the unsolicited kindness? Where is the unexpected moment of rest? The new thing is often just the sacred hidden in the mundane. It is the simple courage to breathe deeply when panic screams in your chest.
That breath is the first path through the wilderness. I know this seems simple, but sacred observation requires radical vulnerability. The willingness to admit that maybe, just maybe, you have been wrong about where the path should start. The second great obstacle that prevents us from seeing the rivers in the desert is what I call the weight of yesterday's map. When we have walked a desert for a long time, we become intimately familiar with its contours. We know where the mirages lie. We know which sand dunes led to exhaustion. We use the geography of our past pain, the failures, the betrayals, the chronic lack, to define the possibilities of our future. We cling desperately to the old map, even though it only leads back to dryness. This weight manifests as constant comparison and doubt. I've failed at this type of relationship before, so why would this one work? My finances have always been unstable. This temporary abundance must be a fluke. We refuse to believe the river can flow because, according to our historical data, it hasn't flowed here before. We allow the old story to hold veto power over the new promise. I carried the weight of yesterday's map for years regarding my ability to trust people. Because of a specific, painful betrayal I experienced early in my career, I operated under the assumption that connection always led to injury. Every new person I met, every open door, every gentle hand extended, was filtered through the lens of that betrayal. I was looking for the path of connection, but I was carrying the heavy, detailed map of isolation. I was mentally and emotionally prepared to be heard, and consequently, I often pushed away the very people who were meant to be the river of support in my desert. I was so busy protecting myself from the past that I blocked the provision of the present. I literally could not perceive the new kindness because my old map told me kindness was a trap.
The desert was defined not by God's inability to create a path, but by my own refusal to abandon the path I already knew, the path of self-protection. Does this sound familiar? Are you using the pain of 2018 or 2021 to determine the potential of this very hour? The solution to the weight of yesterday's map is intentional map burning. This is not just forgetting the past, it is consciously stripping the past of its authority over your future potential. It means waking up every morning and saying, the fact that the river hasn't flowed here before is exactly why it is ready to flow now. I grant the present moment the right to defy my history. Map burning requires courage to be vulnerable again. It means giving permission for the new relationship to be gentle, for the new opportunity to be successful, even if the last 10 were not. This is the hardest part of the journey, trusting God enough to let go of the control of your own suffering. The path is new, therefore, the rules of the journey have changed. The third obstruction to perceiving the new thing is the shame of unpreparedness. This block stems from the core belief that we must be perfected, healed, or professionally certified before God's new path is laid out for us. We look at the wilderness and think, I must first transform this into a manicured garden, and then the river will flow. We try to earn the path. This shame tells us, you are too messy, too anxious, too flawed. Wait until you have read the right books, finished the therapy, or achieved financial stability. Then you will be worthy of the river.
The result is paralysis.
We dig trenches with our own strength, attempting to force the river to conform to our timetable and our specifications. We labor under the illusion of control, believing we must initiate the new thing, rather than simply stepping onto the path that is already being offered. We focus on the destination, the finished product, and thus never take the first messy, imperfect step. I remember a time when I felt called to share a deeply personal and difficult part of my spiritual journey. The path felt clear, but the shame of unpreparedness was paralyzing. I convinced myself I needed to be over it entirely before I could talk about it. I needed to be the victor, the healed saint, not the struggling participant. I kept waiting for the emotional scar to vanish before I spoke. The result was months of silence and stagnation. The river was meant to be the sharing itself, the vulnerability that connected me to others, but I was trying to polish the water until it was perfect. The breakthrough came only when a wise mentor pointed out that the path is often created through the sharing of the struggle, not after it is resolved. God makes a way in the wilderness for the weary traveler, not just for the rested conqueror. We have to understand that the path is a gift, not a reward for being ready. The solution to the shame of unpreparedness is radical acceptance of divine initiative. The new thing springs forth now, in your current state of imperfection. The path is being made for you while you are messy, while you are doubting, while you are only 80% ready. Stop trying to dig the riverbed. Just agree to take the very next step that is illuminated, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant. The next step might simply be forgiveness. It might be sending that difficult email. It might be allowing yourself to sleep past the alarm. The path is not defined by your competence, but by God's commitment to make a way.
The final, and perhaps most insidious block, is the deafness of self-sufficiency. The promise says, "I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert." The key verb is "I will make." This is an act of divine provision, not human effort. But in our culture of striving, productivity, and relentless self-improvement, we become so loud in our own planning and striving that we cannot hear the subtle sound of the river beginning to flow. We confuse activity with progress. We fill our schedules, our minds, and our spiritual practices with noise, fearing that if we stop moving, everything will collapse. This self-sufficiency, ironically, makes us deaf to the gentle guidance of the pathmaker. The river of God often flows in the places of quiet surrender and non-striving. We are too busy trying to lift the weight of the wilderness ourselves to notice that someone else is carrying the heaviest load. I experienced this deafness vividly when facing a major financial overhaul. I was so consumed with spreadsheets, projections, and networking, driving myself to the point of burnout every single day. I told myself I was being responsible, but in reality, I was terrified, and I was trying to drown out that fear with action. I was pushing for a specific solution, a wide highway of cash flow, but the path God was creating was far narrower and quieter, a path of simplified living, deep contentment with less, and a radical redefinition of what enough meant. Because my internal world was so noisy with worry, I couldn't hear the whisper that said, "Stop striving. The provision is not the amount, it is the peace." The path was in the letting go, and a river was the unexpected peace that followed. I missed the sound of the flowing water because my own anxiety was too loud.
The solution to the deafness of self-sufficiency is cultivating sacred silence. This means creating intentional, non-productive space in your life, a Sabbath on the soul where your only task is to listen. This is where you practice the patience required to perceive the new thing. How do you do this? It might be 5 minutes before bed where you refuse to plan tomorrow and simply ask, "Where did the river flow today?" It might mean turning off the music in the car or eating one meal without looking at a screen. You are not waiting for an earthquake. You are cultivating the stillness necessary to hear the quiet flow of water in a vast, dry land. The path is often revealed in the silence that follows the surrender. So how do we live out this incredible promise of Isaiah 43:19? How do we perceive the way in the wilderness and the rivers in the desert? It is not a complicated formula, but it requires daily, intentional practice of these pillars. First, we commit to sacred observation. We stop looking for the grand external highway and begin validating the small internal shifts, the micro graces, the unexpected moments of kindness, the simple courage to breathe. We recognize that the sacred is hidden in the ordinary. Second, we practice intentional map burning. We refuse to allow the failures, the shortages, or the betrayals of yesterday to define the potential of tomorrow. We give the present moment permission to defy our history, knowing that a new path requires new rules. Third, we embrace radical acceptance of divine initiative. We abandon the shame of unpreparedness and step onto the path while we are still messy, knowing that the way is being made for the weary traveler, not by the polished saint. The path is a gift of grace, not a reward for competence.
Finally, we cultivate sacred silence. We quiet the noise of self-sufficiency and striving, creating space to hear the subtle sound of the river that is already flowing. We trade activity for presence, understanding that the flow of provision often begins in the stillness of surrender. The abundant life is not a destination you find ready-made. It is a way of seeing the world that you cultivate day by day through these small acts of faith. The new thing is not coming, it is already springing forth. It is time to open your eyes and perceive the way. If you are resonating with this message, I invite you to join our community here at Echo of Grace, where we explore the intersection of vulnerability and spiritual power every single week. Take a moment right now, just where you are, and commit to one small act of sacred observation today. What is one small good thing you have overlooked in the past 24 hours? Acknowledge it. Validate it. If this reflection helped you shift your perspective, share it with someone you know who is currently feeling stranded in their own wilderness. Share in the comments below which obstacle, external perception, yesterday's map, unpreparedness, or self-sufficiency you are committing to confront this week. Let us walk this new path together. May the clarity of the Spirit illuminate the path right beneath your feet. May the river of divine provision overflow in the driest parts of your soul. And may you be granted the grace to perceive the new thing that is already springing forth. Go in peace, knowing the path is being made for you.